When I arrived here in 1975, my small classes had 12 people in them, and my large classes had 25 people in them. That was a time when I believe we had 8,000 students total on campus.
Yeah.
UCI is a very different place today. It's bigger and it's more impressive in the number of things it does.
Well, it's certainly bigger, that's for sure. We now have about 32,000 students, and we'll probably get up to about 40,000 in the next decade. So it's a much larger university. I'd say in many ways it's much more balanced and diverse in terms of its strengths. Back when I was in graduate school and you first joined the faculty, there were areas of tremendous strength around the campus, but also areas which had not developed much by that time. And now, I'd say in general, most of the units have come up to a very, very high level, and sure, there are some standouts, but the general level of quality of all the units is truly extraordinary now. So that's been a big change in the way the campus developed over the past 30 years. When I became chair, the department had a long string of very, very good chairs. Howard Babb was chair for a long time. He was chair when I was a graduate student. Right. Ed Schell picked up after that. I think I was the chair right after Ed, and then moved into the dean's office for a couple of years. The school was changing rapidly at that point because in the early 90s, when I finished being chair, we still had most of the faculty who had been brought here in the first decade of the department. Mm-hmm. And within 2 or 3 years, those faculty retired en masse, pretty much.
Part of that had to do with a special buyout that was put on
right.
in the mid-90s, and right. We lost 6 people at one go, which included Calderwood Tolliver, Bob Montgomery, Ed Schell, and Murray Krieger, as I recall. Not Schell, perhaps, but...
but during that time or right after it, they all retired as a group.
Yeah.
And so the department really was transformed at that point. And that was true for the school as a whole. Mm-hmm. It was exaggerated in English, I believe, but most of the units in the humanities had that similar kind of transitional period.
Well,
there
we
in the mid-90s.
We did lose at one fell swoop just about all our Shakespeareans. And that's true. So it's really particularly good that, as I say, Julia Lupton, who is now just within the last week or so established a Shakespeare Center that's a joint venture with the School of the Arts, so that it has theater. That's one thing I've always been very much in favor of. When I was the director of our Introduction to the Major, one of the things I did was to get together with Robert Cohen, who was their chair of drama. Now we know him as the Robert Cohen Theater, named for him over on their campus. And we arranged to have one of the plays that our students were teaching played on the main stage, Shaw's Heartbreak House. And we arranged to have his graduate acting students rehearse 2 plays, Death of a Salesman and As You Like It, so that the students could see what a rehearsal looked like and how these plays were brought into being. And we also hired, with pedagogical funds, a director from his graduate directing who went around with to little volunteer troops in each section and got them to do scenes, or in one case, 2 different ways of doing To Be or Not to Be, as a performance for their fellow students. And in fact, they said, could we please have a whole day where we can, all of us, do
Well, you know, that was a function of the size of the campus to some extent, that it was a lot easier to work across school boundaries than it is now.
Well, there are right now inter-school initiatives that I think are really getting back there.
There
to
are,
that sort
yeah.
of
We're
thing.
trying to formalize that spontaneous or ad hoc interaction that occurred when the campus was so small. You had to talk to other people outside of your school because there just weren't that many people in the school. But yeah, starting in the 90s, that was changing very, very quickly. We entered into a period of growth where we were adding about 1,000 new students, additional students every year, and about 50 new faculty positions. And that went on for over a decade. That was one of the reasons I got interested when Bill Lillyman, who was Executive Vice Chancellor at the time, offered me the position of Vice Provost for Academic Planning, is that the campus was headed toward the end of that growth. From 65 to about 2005, we went from, well, no students in 64 to about 22,000 undergraduates and another 8,000 graduate students now. And for the past 10 years, being Vice Provost of Academic Planning, I got to see that development and have a little influence over how it took place. So we now have, for example, a School of Law, which I think is one of the most important developments this campus could have made for the campus as a whole, but also for humanities. I mean, law is traditionally the professional school where humanists go.
And it's one of the things that we have is law and literature.
That's right. Yes.
One of the leading scholars of law and literature is in our department, Brooke Thomas, whom I mentioned earlier, and there have been initiatives between them. I went over and heard my old friend Mark Rose from Santa Barbara talk for the law school on copyright, and he's been doing a lot of work in that field. And I think that's a school of law that from nowhere became one of the best known schools.
Oh, absolutely. Due in very large part to the hard work of Erwin Chemerinsky, the founding faculty, founding dean of the school. But there have been other developments around the campus that have helped the campus as a whole expand its academic portfolio and really take on the character of a large, absolutely first-rate public research university. With a school of medicine, we have programs in nursing science, public health, pharmaceutical sciences, and then across the board, our academic units have improved to truly impressive degrees. There's a School of Education now. It's one of the most highly rated in the country. Our chemistry department is generally recognized as certainly among the top 5, if not the best in the country. The whole campus now, I think, has achieved a level of prominence that humanities and biological sciences and a couple of other units set the bar in the early years, and the rest of the campus has met that now. And I think we are genuinely a collective that's much stronger than any one of its parts.
And it